The Lord be with you. There is a rather curious story to be found in the 11th chapter of the book of Numbers. It is a powerful story of hope that doesn't read like much of a story of hope at all. Read it, you will quickly understand what that means. Moses is leading God's people through the wilderness, and Lord help them, God's people are not happy. They are complaining about everything. God is providing manna from heaven day by day, every day. And the people are complaining because it's boring food. They remember eating meat in Egypt, all the fruits and vegetables that were theirs without cost. Now they are forced to eat nothing but manna every single day, 3 meals a day. God had delivered them from slavery. God had sent Moses to them to invoke plagues in God's name. They were free. God had set them free, and still they complained. God's people were not happy. God was not happy. God heard their complaining, and 3 or 4 times in this passage, in this chapter, we are told that the Lord became exceedingly angry. And Moses wasn't happy. He goes so far as to say to God, if this is how you are going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me. No, Moses is not happy at all. So how does God resolve this situation? God promises to provide them all with meat for an entire month. Now Moses starts wailing. You can't satisfy these people. Would they have enough if flocks and herds were slaughtered for them? Would they have enough if all the fish in the sea were caught for them? And God responds to Moses with a very startling, but also a very hopeful question. Is the Lord's arm too short? In other words, is there a limit to my power? We know the answer to that question. Of course, there's no limit to God's power. But do we live as if we believe it? It is a question we need to be asking in the times in which we find ourselves. Are our problems bigger than God? Or is our God bigger than our problems? Is the Lord's arm too short? We are all complaining about confinement and masks and restaurants closing and opening and takeout only and whatever else. When are things going to get back to normal? We all want to know. Will things ever get back to normal? We all want to know. Is the Lord's arm too short? We have been praying fervently for this pandemic to end, but that end isn't in sight. Is God not hearing our prayers? When will the Lord hear us and act? Is the Lord's arm too short? Is there a limit to the power of God? Mark Batterson, in his book, The Circle Maker, says this: our biggest problem is our small view of God. It's a high view of God that is the solution to all our problems. Until you come to the conviction that God's grace and power have no limits, you will draw small prayer circles. Once you embrace the omnipotence of God, you'll draw enlarging circles around your God-given, God-sized dreams. So, Is the Lord's arm too short? I recently read an article written by a man whose grandparents were born in 1904. During their lifetimes, they experienced World War II and 22 million people dying in it. They survived the Spanish flu epidemic, which killed 50 million people in 2 years. When they were 29, the Great Depression hit with 25% unemployment. At age 39, along came World War II and another 75 million deaths, including 6 million Jews, 2 million of whom were children. Then the Korean War, then the Vietnam War, then the Cuban Missile Crisis. They experienced the assassination of President Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., the Watergate scandal, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the Gulf War. And yet here we are, lamenting these days, complaining about them. COVID-19 is just another ugly chapter in world history. But let us never forget who it is who is writing the book. The human race has survived so many atrocities and horrors. So you tell me, is the Lord's arm too short? May God bless us all with hope. Amen.